Alright there guys, and welcome back to Real Talk. That's right, first episode of 2022, and today's topic is on judging people. Because let's be honest, we've all done it. I've done it, you've done it. Whether it's positively or negatively, we have all judged somebody at some point. And we're going to be talking about why do we do that, and why it's not always a bad thing. Because I feel we all judge people because from what we see of others, everyone gives us a perception of who they are that we come up with in our heads based on what we see. So you could have someone who thinks someone is a really good person by what they've seen, and then you could have another person who thinks this same person is actually a really bad person based on what they've seen. So it's all a matter of perspective. I mean, not only do we all judge people, we've all probably been judged by someone else, whether we know it or not. Some point, someone will have judged us. We may never have found out, but it will have happened. And is that necessarily such a bad thing? Because if we lived in a world where nobody judged anyone, there would be a lot of weird things that would probably be happening. Because if everything is just if literally everything is seen as socially acceptable, who knows what strange things people would come up with to do. I mean, maybe not judging people has caused certain bad things. I mean, I wanted to give a good example, but there's actually a video later on this year on my main channel I want to make that will involve this point, so I won't tell you the point now. You'll have to wait a few months before I do talk about this point. But the phrase that comes to mind for me when it comes to judgment is don't judge a book by its cover, right? We've all heard it. Don't judge a book by its cover, which means don't judge a person based on what you've heard of them. But have you ever noticed, every time someone says don't judge a book by its cover, that every time someone says that to you, that's because they assume that you're going to judge this person negatively. They always assume that same thing every time. That you're going to judge someone negatively, which is why they're saying don't judge book by its cover. Well, in my opinion, that's fine, but people should also say the phrase when meaning the opposite. Don't judge a book by its cover should also mean don't judge someone positively just because that's what they perceive as. Because not judging a book by its cover in that front scenario it's probably caused quite a number of bad impressions for people. Stop judging people. Don't judge someone negatively just because of what you've heard about them. Well, we need to also throw it on the other end of the spectrum. Don't judge someone positively because of what you've heard of them. Because good people can seem like bad people, which is where the first part comes in. But then on the other side of the spectrum, a bad person can seem like a good person because that's what they want you to perceive them as, when that's not what they actually are. I didn't really want to bring up this one, but the only example I have of this scenario for myself is David. Because, I mean, would you think he's a bad person by looking at him and the way he perceives himself to people most of the time? No, that's how he managed to be friends with me for a number of years, when deep down he was the bad person that, well, I called out over the years. He's the best example of, don't judge someone positively just because that's the way because that's the way they perceive themselves. Maybe they want you to think that about them. Because I've never understood why it's only ever used it's only ever used when someone assumes that you'll think of a person negatively. And also, what happens if someone you just have a feeling that someone is a bad person, right? But then you get the don't judge a book by its cover, but then you turned out to be right about that person. They perceive themselves in such a good way that everyone else thinks they're a good person, but you know they're a bad person. They just hide it very, very well, but you know the truth. Because then that person can go and hurt the people that think they're a good person. And that's why the phrase "don't judge a book by its cover" always annoys me, because it's always used in the same way. Don't judge someone negatively just because of what you've heard of them. But what if what you've heard about them turns out to be right and turns out to be the type of person they actually are? Basically, the point I'm trying to get across is, judging people is not inherently a bad thing. Society would not be able to function properly if people didn't judge others. So we would not be able to function as a society without that. Like, you can have your biases of groups of people you judge, whether that's fair or not. It's just how you feel. Like, for a good example, I judge furries negatively because I just think they're extremely cringe. I don't know why anyone would ever want to be a furry. Like, the furries, in my opinion, make the anime community actually look smart. That community makes ours look good. And I just find being a furry is very, very weird. But it doesn't mean I need to go and constantly go on about it and make people who are furries feel bad, because they chose to do it. They clearly enjoy it, so they should be allowed to do it if they want. I don't agree with it, but just because I don't agree with it doesn't mean it shouldn't happen. Actually, that also gives me a great point that, like, 10 years ago, basically, you can kind of guess the idea that hating on people that were fans of anime, it was a trendy thing to do back in the day, like 10 years ago. Back when anime still wasn't quite as mainstream as it has become now, where millions of people are fans of it. No doubt some of the people back in the day, like 10 years ago, were the ones making fun of anime fans, but then 10 years later, lo and behold, they are one. And the thing is, that still happens. Like, people still, even now in 2022, people still get judged for being fans of anime. Nowhere near even close to what it was like 10 years ago, but it still does happen. Honestly, it was happening to me just before I left school. And I even made a video around the end of 2017 talking about that very specific thing, why it annoys me that people basically give you grief because you're a fan of something. It's like, even if you don't like the thing, you don't need to basically make someone else who does like it feel bad about liking it just because you don't. The same way, I don't like furries, but I don't go out of my way to make furries feel bad for being furries. That's what they want to do, and they should be allowed to do it. Just like I am an anime fan, and I should be allowed to do it to express express myself as an anime fan as much as I want. Hence why most of my content on my main channel is related around anime. But what do you guys think to my point? Is judging people negatively actually not as bad of a thing as it sounds, because it might turn out to be the correct assumption? And if people don't listen to you, they might get hurt by this person, which you knew would happen, but they would not listen to you. Again, I didn't bring up David to stir up anything. I literally just bring it up because that's the only example personally that I have. Like, me and him, we're not friends. We'll never be friends again. But that whole thing where we're cool with each other now. Like, we don't speak to each other, but the beef, that's all settled. All of the beef between 2018 and 2020, all that settled. Just wanted to bring him up because it's the only example of someone who isn't really a good person, but makes everyone believe that they are because of the way they act when there's a lot of people around compared to how they act when there's not many people around. But yeah, that is going to kick off Real Talk for 2022. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have, please be sure to leave a like. Subscribe to this channel if you are new, as well as my main channel, as the 5-year anniversary video for my main channel is going up on Wednesday in 3 days' time. So, another year, another anniversary video. But until then, catch you later.